Hey guys, this is Stanley with Navionics. About to go ahead and get started. Just getting the last few little things set up. Real quick, can everyone hear me okay? Just if you can, just type it into the questions or the chat down at the bottom. Okay, guys. Looks like I'm good on sound. We'll go ahead and get started. Tonight's webinar is actually going to be over tackle preparation, organization, and storage. It's a pretty big deal, traveling to different events just to have everything in good working condition, because you don't want to get that good fish on, or, that could cost you, a check or placing, in a tournament, or even a fish of a lifetime. Before we get started on that part, I'm actually going to do kind of like I do on all my webinars. I'm going to start out with just a couple of sonar charts examples on from Navionics. Right now I've got the Navionics web app pulled up on my screen, and this is actually Lake Toledo Bend. It's my home lake. I live about 45 minutes south of it and Sam Rayburn. There's some really good sonar chart examples on this lake. As you can see, this is, if any of you are familiar with Toledo Bend, this is Housing Bay, or Housing Bayou. It's kind of one of the most, a real popular area on the lake. But if you zoom in, you can see how you've got this just defined line right down the middle of it, where there's just one side of it, there's a lot of detail and contour lines. The other side is pretty plain. You can just kind of see the creeks, things of that nature. But if you go down here to the bottom left-hand corner on the Navionics web app, you actually can toggle the sonar charts on and off. And for any of you that haven't been on any of my webinars, the sonar charts from Navionics is actually a layer that users, such as ourselves, fishermen that are out fishing, can actually record while they fish and turn it in to Navionics. And Navionics has a technology to take your GPS coordinates and your sonar readings and convert those into better contour lines. So you can see the line going through here. It makes a tremendous difference on this whole left side. It makes a big difference. Sorry, guys, I was actually reading some of the questions, and that's something I should have said. I'm going to actually wait probably to the end. Everyone's going to be muted through through the webinar. Once we get to the end, I'll actually go through and start answering questions. I'll read it out, read who asked, and I'll give you a good answer to that. Back to what we were kind of discussing. As you can see me toggling this on and off. This whole left side is all blank. Well, when you turn it on, a lot of it's there. There's still some to be desired, but it gets better daily. Right now, Navionics produces right around 20,000 tracks per week of lakes across the country submitted by fishermen. But as you can see, that it's a big difference, that just a little bit of recording. And this isn't guys going out and zigzagging and things of that nature. When I record, I literally just hit record, fish. As I move spots, I might stop and start it just in case, to make sure nothing messes up, and I go fish. As long as your sonar is actually reading, it works. But yeah, as you can see there, and there's actually a few more good examples on this end of the lake, just out in the middle. And the reason you have some of these, and I don't know about all lakes, but like I say, Toledo Bend's a great example of, you have these perfect cut lines. And the reason you have those is because a few years back, Navionics was partnered with the hotspots mapping. Well, they ended up having some discrepancies on some of the mapping, decided to part ways. So when they did part ways, some of the data they lost was stuff that was provided by hotspots, old topo maps. So that's why it's perfect cut lines. It's not just, hey, spots are missing. It's perfectly lines that just there's nothing there. But now with the sonar charts, a lot of that stuff, because like on Toledo Bend, there's a lot of timber. There's a lot of, there's a lot of stumps, grass. It's hard for sonar boats to get in some of those key areas. Whereas now with the sonar charts, me or you in a bass boat can easily slip through there record, and then, get better mapping for everyone. As you can see when I toggle it on, I mean, there's a lot of data that you just wasn't there. This hump right here, I mean, it kind of shows you actually it's a hole. It's going the opposite direction. And all this, it shows the buoys. It really makes a big difference in some of these areas. Some of these especially. And one of my actually favorite spots on this lake is just south of here this is Sandy Creek Flats. As you can see, there is big spots on Sandy Creek that's just not there. And that's a very popular flat. There's a lot of grass. It's good flipping grass in the summertime. There's some good ledges, creek channels. You toggle that on. My computer's a little slow out here. I'm actually in my garage. But as you can see, I mean, all of those contour lines of that flat where the ditch comes through, all that stuff shows up. Just another good example. And then this is the back of the back pocket here when you turn it on and off. All right. Now the rest of it, for the most part, is going to be on webcam. Once I start going through my boat, truck, I'm going to kind of cover it from truck, boat, into pegboard in the garage, just different, organization ways. I'm going to start out with tackle preparation, just your common, check for different things on your tackle before you take off. Then I'm going to move into the actual organization and storage. I'll start on the boat, go from the boat to the truck, and then truck to pegboard. That's a little backwards, but that's kind of the best way I think we can cover it today. Just kind of show you some different tricks that I do. I don't do anything fancy with my tackle storage. I just like it to be very organized. And I can kind of show you the different things I do. I try to do cheap, simple, things that, don't cost me a fortune to store tackle, but also it's very handy for me to reach and grab. Same in my truck, same in the pegboard. But we'll kind of get to that. First, we'll get started on the actual preparation. And before you can actually prepare tackle, obviously you need to know what conditions you're going to be fishing, whether it's going to be, hey, you're traveling to, in my case, a Bassmaster Open or FLW Rayovac, or if you're just going to your local lake, you hadn't been there in a little while. Well, you need to know the obvious things like type of lake, time of year. Is it shallow, a deep lake? Is it grass? Which that's just kind of a quick mention of that things. If anyone's interested in that, I may actually do a separate webinar over, breaking down a new body of water. But once you kind of work for this exercise, we'll kind of go ahead and already know, hey, you know what you're going after. Just a quick thing on your rods and reels. Now in the off season, I got a guy here that actually I'll bring my reels to. He'll break them down, clean them, lube them. He's one of the best. I use Shimano reels. He's one of the best in the area on actually redoing reels, whether it's, just cleaning and oiling, or if it's putting the aftermarket bearings and drag washers in. Does a great job on them. And I use a lot of braids. I'm pretty tough on some reels. But on your, so you want to clean and oil your reels. I mean, if it's between trips, things like that, Shimano sends a little small thing of real lube there in the box. But then, there's some other companies that make, like the Ardent, make some real drops and a little lime butter and things of that nature. I'll open them up, just spin them, maybe put a drop or two of oil in them. You can put too much oil in them, kind of make them, fish a little rough. But something a lot of people, that's a common thing because you can actually hear a lot of what's going on in your reel. Something a lot of people actually overlook is your guides on your rods. A real quick way of checking to make sure there's no cracks in the ceramic on that is to take a Q-tip and actually rub it over the ceramic in the rods. And if there's any nicks or cuts, most of the time it'll hang on, and it'll mess up the Q-tip, and you'll know that guide needs to be replaced. Because even with braid, I mean, a slight nick in a ceramic guide will slice through most line. On your hard baits, you're going to want to, check all your hooks. Because, if they've been in a box for a while, I mean, even some of the best boxes, you can still get some, a little bit of rust, surface rust on your hooks. So you'll either want to look at, replacing the hooks, sharpening them. I keep a lot of hooks and split rings on because I change a lot of my hooks to different sizes. Make sure clipping the extra line off your tackle that you may be, if you're going to lake and you're going to be throwing deep diving crankbaits, you're going to want to go, look through that box and, make sure you've got an abundance of everything. You don't want to get up there and you've got one of them of your best crankbait, and then, 10 casts in, you break off on one, and then there you are. Uh, a good thing on a lot of your crankbaits, they'll lay loose. There's a couple different ways that if they get those little, from the hooks being wet or moisture, if you end up for some reason getting, say, some rust spots on your baits, I'll just take some warm water, add a little bit of dishwashing soap to it, take like a toothbrush or something, and that stuff normally cleans right off pretty easily. If it's bad enough you've got rust on there, obviously you're going to want to go in, change your split rings, change your hooks. Me, I like to go up a size in most of my crankbait hooks, maybe 2 sizes. Uh, kind of the same with soft baits. Basically, you're just going to check your quantities, just your common things, wire baits, check skirts, replace skirts. There's a lot of there's a lot of different options on how you store your spinner baits or buzz baits. But there's also a lot, that you can end up with melted skirts. Just like, say, I'm here in Texas, and, it gets hot. So it's pretty common to have some melted skirts or some skirts that have stuck to the blades. And one thing I found is actually pretty awesome on cleaning spinnerbait blades is toothpaste. You can actually take a dab of toothpaste, put it on those blades that have a little bit of tarnish on them, brush them, and normally, most of the time, obviously there's some drastic, cases, that stuff will come right off. Let's see, wire baits, soft baits, I've kind of covered most of that. We'll actually go ahead. I moved pretty quick through that stuff just because, that's a lot of common things that a lot of people know. A couple small tips there. But we can actually go ahead and move into storage. And I can go ahead and, turn my webcam on. The first thing I'd like to talk about on the storage, before we turn the webcam on, is line storage. Me, I get a lot of my line in bulk. I like to get all my fluorocarbon. I use Sunline fluorocarbon. I ordered in 1,000-yard spools. That stuff can actually be damaged by improper storage, or say your braid. If you have a couple rods you use braid on, and hey, you're going to keep that braid on for a while, your excess braid or fluorocarbon or mono, I like to keep it in like a Rubbermaid tote. But keep it in darker areas. Don't keep it in direct sunlight. Don't keep it in well lit areas. Keep it in somewhere that's kind of darker. If I've got abundance, and I keep a small box of everything that I've actually opened. I've got a chest here that I keep it in out in my garage. It stays pretty cool in my boat garage. I've got some ceiling fans and things. But my bulk line I'll actually take and put in the top of my closet, because if you can keep that stuff at room temperature, out of direct sunlight, that stuff will last forever. But on the other hand, if you keep it out, say, keep it in your boat for, long periods of time where it's hot, cold, sweating, it'll actually, what they'll call rot your line. And, obviously you don't want to chance that, chance having bad line. You don't want to spend the money on a big spool of line and then turn around and you've got to throw it out because, it rotted on you. If you'll give me a second, guys, I'll actually climb up in the boat, turn the webcam on, and get started on looking at some of the stuff that I do in the boat. So give me just a second. I'll climb up in the boat and go ahead and get that turned on. Okay, guys, can everyone see my webcam? All right. I run a 2015 Skeeter FX20. It actually has great storage. Looking into let me actually make this screen a little bigger. Sorry about the delay, guys. I really don't do anything fancy in this box. This is stuff I was actually taking out. I've actually got a 3-year-old that thinks this boat is his, just like mine. So I actually had all this stuff out of the boat. I basically just stick to the plain Plano boxes. I keep one big Rubbermaid. These things actually, I think this thing come from the dollar store, but it's actually a great storage for these bigger swim baits. You know, some of these I think that's an 8-inch HUD. We won't dig too far into that box, but it's actually a great storage for these bigger swim baits. It sits right on, in my Skeeter, it actually, as you can see, it's a pretty deep box. I mean, it's just, 6 inches deep or so. I can take it, put the lid on it, and it sits on top of all my typical Plano boxes and lets my, my lid still close there. On all of my other Plano boxes, I keep them all just, nice and labeled, nothing real crazy, top water box. Just kind of keep a good assortment of different stuff in it. Even in my top waters, I try to, group them by what I'm going to be doing. Like I have a lot of walking baits. I'll keep all my walking baits in the compartment together. Which I know, a lot of people say about, your hooks getting tangled, but it's actually pretty quick to get those out. So I don't go too extreme on, making sure I have separation between every bait. This is actually a really cool bait that just came out. This is everybody see that? This is actually a Biovex popper. It's called a Face 70. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of our lakes here, like a Yellow Magic or a Pop R, they actually get used a lot. This is actually almost a little bit more of a finesse popper. It doesn't have near as deep cup, but it's a really cool bait. It definitely has its place. Great bait in the fall and spring. A little bit more subtle for pressured fish. It really works well. But I kind of keep all my hard baits like this, and they just normally just slip right back in. I keep a smaller box. I've got my spoon stuff, and with my spoons, I actually buy the spoons in bulk, and then I've got all my split rings, things of that nature here. Different size spoons, a few hair jigs. And I keep a little smaller box of those. Crankbaits. Now these are actually the Plano crankbait boxes that kind of have an angle to them. I think they're the Plano Elites. These things actually work pretty cool because the actual crankbaits slide right down into them to where the hooks. And you can actually put several crankbaits. These are all 6. This is my 6XD box from Strike King, and it's it really does. Those boxes work awesome, and it channels any. If you do get moisture in it, it actually channels it down into the bottom of the box, and these things kind of keep it up off the bottom of the box. As you can see, there's zero rust in that box whatsoever. It has a really good seal to it, but like I said, nothing fancy. It's kind of and I even kind of have them organized where, like, I've got chatterbaits, football jigs, flipping jigs. Then I go to a swimming frog and soft swim baits, hard swim baits, wake baits, and then go deep diving crankbaits, top water, and then I get in my terminal tackle. One thing I really like, these are the Falcon FTO hook boxes that I use for all of my hooks. This is just my treble hook box. Kind of got a whole assortment in. I've got some of the new Gamakatsus in there that I use. I've got the obviously the KVD mustads. But I like to keep a good assortment of treble hooks. And with these boxes, you can look in there pretty quick and see what sizes you're low on. I try to keep them, organized from smallest to largest, and then work my way back. That way, because the whole deal is, you don't want to waste a lot of time digging for stuff. That's kind of those. Actually, this is the crankbait box. I throw a lot of wake baits as well. Well, this is the crankbait box that I use for my wake baits. I've got some different wake baits in here. Some of the new wake baits out from Biovex. Pretty sweet little wake bait. And they've also got the standard crankbait style wake baits, along with the Strike Pros and the Strike King Shads. like I said, nothing real fancy. You know, I can keep a lot of those boxes in here. I mean, this box is, the storage compartment's big, but it's not huge by no means, and it's but I can stack a lot of those boxes. You know, if it's days that, hey, I've got some extra stuff I want to throw in, there's still plenty of room on top. As you can see with my fishing partner / son, he had a lot of stuff just kind of stacked on top that he took out of my extra storage box. Alabama rigs, don't really keep them in the boat much unless I'm fishing some kind of a, you know, a team event or something that we're allowed to use them. Bassmaster Opens, I kind of cancel using them. This is actually a little plain, or actually a Flambeau Alabama rig box. Works pretty good once you fold them back up. I don't keep a whole lot of Alabama rigs in the boat. It's kind of one of those controversial baits, I guess. As you start getting to the bow, just for performance-wise, I like to kind of I'll keep some heavier stuff in this main box, but once I get to this front box, you're going to kind of want to keep it light. There I just have life jackets. These are all my GoPro stuff. We'll actually go into this box here. This side of my boat, I've got a lot of rods in here. These are all kind of technique-specific rods. I keep all my flipping rods, cranking rods, and spinning rods in there. Basically rods that I'm not going to use a whole lot of multi-purpose stuff with. You got my net folded up in here. And the only box I keep over here, I keep a couple, but it's actually, I throw a lot of frogs. So I use one of the bigger, thicker boxes, and I keep a ton of frogs in there. And I've actually found, because there's a lot of these, you know, your frogs, just like anything else, they get hot, you know, those legs will tend to kind of mess up. You can see that one's starting to mess up there. I've actually found as long as you keep them in the standard package, it actually works really well. That's why I went to this bigger box. I can lay a lot of these packages in here, and then just have one of every color that I'm actually currently using, or, you know, that I was using and had to cut it off. You know, whether I tore it up or, you know, so. But for the most part, I mean, and it's really got to be real hot, or, you know, like this frog's probably a year and a half old, you know, and it's just now starting to turn. As you can see, most of the others, you know, are fine. Another trick on your frogs that I've got a buddy that he didn't have as much storage, so what he does is he carries his frogs in the sandwich bags, the actual zippable, you know, sealable sandwich bags, and he'll put like a touch of baby powder in with his frogs, and yeah, it keeps the white texture all over them, but those frogs never get too hot. They never stick to anything, and in about a cast or two, all that stuff is off of them. So it's a really cool deal. You know, I've got another assortment of just extra frogs. Like I said, I throw a lot of frogs, so I've got just an extra, you know, just random frogs there that just stay in the boat. You know, and as far as all my rods and reels, I fish quite often, but, you know, I've heard a lot of controversy on backing your drags off and things of that nature. I've never done it. I've never had any issues with reels. I mean, I get new reels quite often, but I've got some that are 5, 6 years old, and I've never backed my drags off. You know, like I said, but I do maintain them. I do clean them, you know, to make sure that I don't run into any issues. But I've never had any issues as far as backing the tension knobs off or backing the drags off. Because I'll be honest, if I start doing that, I'll forget first cast. I'll backlash it because I've got the tension knob backed all the way off, or I'll set the hook and, you know, my drag's not tight or something. So it's you know, I've never done it. You know, some people do, some people don't. I guess until it burns me, I'll never do it. Something else is pretty cool that, you know, it kind of goes in with your tackle. Just because those crankbaits are so expensive, this is actually, I don't know if you guys can actually see that or not, but it's actually a rod that I cut off at the first eye. Basically put just normal line on it, just small rope on it, and it's got one of the lure retrievers on it. Well, instead of using, you know, winding it by hand, you know, or whatever you have to do there, I've actually just put an old reel on it, an old Shimano Corsair, just a cheap reel that I've had around for a while. You know, with the lure retriever, that way it's real quick. I mean, pop it down there, knock your bait off, get it back in, and you're not breaking off having to buy another $7, $8, $9 crankbait. This is my day storage box. As you can see right now, it's empty, or for the most part. I mean, I keep things like markers and just stuff. On the markers, I actually keep a couple of these big Sharpies in, and if I flip a lot of braids, so I'll color the last. Instead of changing that braid every time it fades, I'll just color the last 5 or 6 feet of my braid black. It really seems to make a difference. I just kind of got one of these old bottles. I've got nails in here, little finishing nails. I use those as wacky worm weights, just because you can get, a million of them for 10 cents type thing. Don't cost a whole lot. But I'll put them in here just because it's easy storage. You don't lose them. They don't rust. Keep a towel in there. And this is something that's pretty neat. It's something that I actually just recently got. Live Soul Dream is another company that is in with BioVex. This is actually a pouch, and it's got 2 of them in it. Let's see if I can set this down. See if I can set this webcam down for a second. All right, it's actually a pouch, and inside of it, I've actually put 2 in there. It comes with 1. These are actually spinnerbait holders, and I've really got a lot of spinnerbaits in this little. You can see, they're in each pouch. 2 and 3 deep in each side. It unfolds again on this side. So you got 3 or 4 ways there, and then you unpin it, and there's also more in the middle. As you can see, it really is compact. I went from using one of the typical Plano, rack style boxes. I was able to fit all of my spinnerbaits. I basically have a shad or a perch colors in here, and then on this one here, I kind of do all my chartreuse and whites. There's some extra skirts in there. Chartreuse and white, chartreuse and blues will kind of stay in there. And I kind of keep it simple with spinnerbaits. But yeah, you basically can just fold those things right back in there. They fold up real good. This thing's actually made of neoprene. Back it back over, and then it just fits right in the day. It actually fits right there in the day box. So it's one less thing I've got up, and it's out of the way. I'll actually move over here and look into my rod box. Give me a second to kind of move everything. Not too long of a cord on this webcam. Alright, this is my main rod box. You guys can see all that. I try to keep it pretty organized in there. Skeeter has the rod racks in it. I normally can put about double as many rods as that rod rack. And one thing I will tell you that makes a huge difference is using these. These are actually the rod socks. Lake Fork Tackle actually bought out rod socks. Makes them pretty cool. This is all now. They put rubber here to where it doesn't fray on you, and there's rubber down on the end as well as a rubber hanging tag. But I'll slide those, on my rods, and I can actually fit a ton of those rods in this rod box. I don't know how good you can see that. But I've got 2, and on the bottom there's bigger tubes. I've actually got 3 rods deep on the bottom. My line, I try to change all my fluorocarbon, but you can kind of get a feel for it. But I try to change it, once a month, once every other month. The sunlight on the fluorocarbon is really, the tensile strength on that is amazing. It doesn't kink on me near as bad as some of the other fluorocarbons I've used. Braid, I actually give it 3 to 5 months. Because I use the Sunline Shooter FX2 braid. It doesn't fade. This braid here, you can actually see that. It's still pretty dark, and that braid's probably 2.5, 3 months old. I did 60-pound test. I don't have any issues out of it. So it's just kind of a, my personal opinion on how often I change line. Mono, I change a little more often just because I use Suffix mono. It's really smooth, but even good mono, just, I don't know, it gets a lot of memory in it, so it doesn't last as long for me. Okay, that kind of does it for the front. In the floor of my Skeeter, there is what they call a prop storage. It can kind of be one of two things. It can be a prop storage, or it can be an ice chest. I use it as a prop storage, but also as in the prop storage, so you can see the props locked down there. I keep all of my coal tags, my Cullen beam, all that kind of stuff that may get wet. You know, with it being ice chest, there's a drain in the bottom of it. And I also keep a plastic bag in here, just a 1 gallon Ziploc bag. I don't know if you can see how good you can see that, but I've got all of my dyes, you know, worm dye, sprays, you know, real oil, real sprays, you know, the KVD line conditioner, all that stuff is in there. Needles for fizzing, anything that could possibly leak in my boat, I try to keep it there in this ice chest compartment, you know, with my spare prop, because if it does leak, it just goes into the bottom of the boat. Not as big a deal. I don't want that stuff in, you know, any of my carpeted compartments. In a second, I'll move on to the back deck and kind of show you my soft plastic storage and what I do there. I should turn on a light on that soft plastic storage. Okay. All right, in my soft plastic storage, I actually have used tons of different methods, tons of different ways. The best thing I've found so far, and the cheapest by far, is I'll put my soft plastics in these 1 gallon Ziploc bags. I've got them broke down by, you know, what they are. These, you know, soft swim baits. I'll go in the top right-hand corner of each bag, and I'll label what it is. So I've got all of my soft swim baits in their original packages, so you don't have to worry about leaking or, you know, worms fading. You know, some reaction innovations, skinny dippers, you know, and they just slide right in there. They stand up really well. You know, I mean, I've got them labeled, so I can go, all right, here's big worms, lizards, Senko style baits, crawl worms, biffle bugs, another big worms too. That's all kind of like, I'll do a separate thing for, say, my old monsters versus my mag 2s or dead ringers. They're in 2 separate bags. Coming here, there's our soft swim baits. These are tube baits. Now, when it comes to like I said, I flip a lot. So this is actually all my beavers. I flip beavers 90% of the time that I'm flipping, just a personal preference. This is actually a women's undergarment laundry bag from the Dollar General, the dollar store right down the street. It's about $2 or $3. They've got all different sizes. This is the smaller one, but inside of it, I've got my beavers. Like, I've got individual packages, but then I've got some in bulk, you know, just different colors. That's penetration, spray grass, you know, black and blue. And I actually put it in there because I carry so many of those beavers. That bag is very, very strong. It's strong, but I can also look in there and see what I've got. So it's quick organizing. And that's kind of, you know, being efficient. So that's a real easy tip on, you know, these little bags are awesome. Now, if they made those bags in, say, the 1 gallon Ziploc bags, I would use exclusively those. They're a little too big to just put any all soft plastics in, but stuff that I carry a lot of, like my beavers. You know, being able to see right through that, I can see the packages, the colors, you know, real easy to get to that. And, it, you know, it folds up to where it's nothing. I actually carry a couple extra ones in the truck, and it folds up right in, you know, right down in there, and actually makes for a, you know, a pretty, I know it kind of looks at, you know, at a glance, it doesn't look like it's organized, but I know where everything's at in there. It's easy to grab. It's easy to do whatever I need to do with it. So I'll take care of that. Moving on to behind my driver's seat. And This is mostly for my tools. I carry, you can see I've got a little just bag here that's got jumper cables in it. Then I've got a tool set, fire extinguisher, throw cushion. These are kind of some of those baits I've got down here that I don't really plan on using, but there's a possibility. Like right now I've got shallow diving crankbaits, medium diving crankbaits, and buzz baits back here. I'll always leave myself just enough room to put 3 or 4 small boxes right there. Just those, just in case type baits. Again, it's a dry storage, so you don't have to worry about any of that. But I can be quick. I know what's back here at all times. So it's, it's like I said, all about being efficient, not losing time on the water. All right, give me 1 second. I'll hop out of the boat and we'll actually move on to the truck. Then we'll go to pegboard in the garage. Kind of a shot of my boat, guys. I know we haven't actually done anything to where you've seen the full boat. There's the fully wrapped Skeeter FX20. I run this is a 2012 Ford F250 boombox bumper on it. Set this down. All right, now moving on to my truck. I run an ARE lid. It actually comes with the lighting on it. Moving in here, this is actually a decked truck bed system. They're at deck.com. There's a few other ones out there. This thing is actually made out of 100% recycled plastic. It's lightweight. This thing doesn't weigh anything as far as actual weight of the truck, and you can put up to 2,000 pounds on top of it. So you can haul 4 wheelers on top of it if you'd like. So it really, I don't lose a whole lot of space by, obviously I'm not putting a floor in here now, but, it's basically big drawers. This side, I carry a lot of random stuff, a lot of tools. As you can see, I've got extra power pole remotes in here, extra glasses, 1 gallon Ziploc bags, just in case I've got to pull some bulk stuff out. When I'm not traveling, I keep all my Humminbird screen protectors in here. These little cubby holes actually come out. I keep a lot of, tools just because of those on the road emergencies or, changing transducers. I keep my poles and pedestal seats in there. I've got a tool bag, a 4-jack, and all that kind of stuff way up there forward. That drawer actually goes on, but I've got a divider so I can keep all that stuff kind of separated. There's actually a bottle opener for those rough days of fishing as well. On this side, this is how to keep a lot of my tackle on. This little tray here, so it comes out. I keep my extra Navionics cards in it. I've got some syringes. Oh, that's something else that's pretty neat. I know there's a lot of different, tools out there to fizz fish, but some of them are pretty pricey, $25, $30 for 1 needle. This is actually a livestock needle from Tractor Supply. I bought a box of 6 for like $8. Thing works amazing. I just pull the stopper out of it. It's got a heavy gauge needle, so it doesn't get stopped up bad at all. Works really well, and it's definitely a great alternative to having, a $20 needle. And a lot of your actual ones that are made for it, I've seen, they stop up very easily. I keep 2 in the boat, and I keep just a couple of these. I think it's Producer's Pride or any brand will work. It works really well for fizzing fish. Keep some extra ones in there. Coming in here, got all my cleaning rags, different sprays, my hot sauce. And I'll keep a lot of extra my boxes in here. I haven't been to a tournament recently, so it's actually pretty bare. This is just stuff I never unloaded from the Ross Barnett Open back in March. Everything else I've been fishing just been local until the next Open up in Oklahoma in September. And I've got, the boxes stand straight up in there, when I've got it full. I've actually still got a large tote up here forward. It's just got all my soft plastics, any extra soft plastics. Like I didn't plan on fishing, drop shot and everything like that in Ross Barnett in March because it's kind of a power fishing deal. So, but just in case, I brought all that kind of stuff in this big, like I said, just a dollar store tote, but it seals off well. $3 or $4 at dollar store works really good for just throwing stuff in the truck bed. And one thing I kind of do is my boat, I keep 2, maybe 3 of most of my tackle in my boat. Anything above 2, especially things I don't use a lot, gets transferred into my truck. And I'll keep 1 or 2 in my truck depending on time of year. Stuff moves in and out of my truck a lot depending on time of year, the lake we're going to. And then I keep everything else on pegboard. I'm just now getting this boat garage organized like I want. I do have my pegboard up, but not all of it. You can see that closes real nice. And also, you don't have to run a bed cover for this thing. It's all watertight. It goes way up underneath, so that it's actually, you have the gasket and with it tucking underneath. Nothing actually, no water can get into it, no moisture. I actually run on the truck for about 4 months with no bed cover, so it worked out really well. This is the cabinet I was telling you about. It was actually an entertainment center or an Walmart or something my wife had to have maybe into the garage. So now it's a fancy tackle closet. But it's perfect for keeping my line. I'll keep all my line. Here's my line spooler. Like I said, it's a good dark ventilated area. This is the line that I'm normally is in and out of that I'm actually using right now. I've got my bolts, some of my bolt spools, some of my shooter, 1,000-yard spools of Sunline Sniper, Suffix, Mono, and then this is actually what the Sunline FX2 braid comes in. This is 300 yards of 60-pound test. So I'll keep that in there. I've got 4 extra transducers there, some extra Navionics cards for different areas, or the boxes for the ones that are in my boat. And this is the oil I was talking about. This is all the old bottles that come with my Shimano reels. You can see I got a couple extra of the old E7s here. Here's the extra bags I was talking about, of those that I keep my beavers in the bag. Got a few extra of those. Some paperwork. Keep some different, just boots, foul weather gear, that sort of thing down there. Nothing real important. Now, as far as rod storage, I keep all of my extra rods that are not in my boat either in my truck, or I actually had a friend of my dad's build this. It's a pretty slick little rod holder. It actually holds 32 rods. It just along the length of my garage. Only sticks out a few inches, so it's not in the way of anything. As you can see now, it's kind of been taken over by my 3-year-old partner in fishing there. But I've got a lot of my rods down the other end that I don't have reels on, or that I don't have line on, that I'm not using right now. I didn't move too fast to do that, but it's a lot of my rods that are still in plastic. They stay back here. That way I can be in the boat, think, oh, hey, I need a spinnerbait rod, or I'm going to be throwing I want a shorter rod for a spinnerbait because we're going to be up in tight quarters. Well, I've got, a couple 6'6", 6'8" spinnerbait rods over here, or trap rods and, things like that. I can kind of move them in and out of the boat where I don't have just a ton of stuff. The rod tubes for the top of my truck are being built now. I went over that with you. Moving on, this is some of my, like I said, it's not all of it, but I've got a lot of my pegboard set up back here. And this is actually that alligator board. It's a galvanized pegboard that I can move stuff in and out of. So basically the way it works is, like I said, I keep 2 of everything in the boat, 1 or so of some things in the truck, and then like an overstock back here, old baits. Like here's some of the old Pose, super cedar crankbaits that I'm not using, or they're cracked, and it's not stuff I want to get rid of, so it kind of stays back here. There's some extra 6XDs. Had a guy out of Tennessee paint a couple of the Tennessee shad. Some, getting ready for table rocks. I'm starting to collect a few of the old wiggleworts. So any of you have any of those wiggle warts, I'll be glad to take them off your hands. But anyway, that's basically, I've got some traps. And even back here, I try to, I go topwater hard baits to frogs to rattle traps and come back down here to wake baits, shallow running crankbaits, and go to deeper diving, work my way down, and I come to all my wire baits, jigs, and then my soft plastics on the bottom. Part of that soft plastic on the bottom is my 3-year-old and my 1-year-old that are out here all the time. They can't really get hooks in them. I've got more pegboard coming to bring it all the way up to the ceiling to kind of get this corner right. I keep this, I've got this little, these are actually same deal that LSD Designs, the Live Soul Dream. Some of their bags, I'll throw some extra tackle in those. My GoPro stuff works great in these bags. I got a couple extra ones back here. In here, I just keep stuff like, there's another one of those spinnerbait pouches, work really good. Got an extra bilge pump, extra extra motor toter, kind of keep all that stuff down there. Power pole, socks. I try to keep everything to where I can be in and out of the boat really quick. Let me think. I think that's, for the most part, about it. I should get up here and start going over questions if you guys want to. See if there's anything that I didn't cover. All right. Let's see. Let's start going over some of the questions you may have. All right. I'll start up at the top. We'll start with Chris Robinson. His question, what's the best way to age soft plastics? And his next question, what's the best way to manage load weight in a high-performance boat? Chris, I'll start with the boat question because I'm not real sure what you were talking about on the plastics. I see. I bet you mean how to manage them. As you can see, I kind of went over I used the 1 gallon Ziploc bags, something that works out real well for me. And it's simple. If I tear one, I pull another one out of the box. So, there's not a whole lot of cost associated with it. The load, I try to keep anything like necessary heavy as far as, the weights I'm using. I don't keep an abundance of tungsten or anything like that in the front of the boat. But the stuff that I do keep, I'll keep in the center. And then the center towards the back, my back compartment, and then everything lighter kind of up front. All of my tools, weights, soft plastics, things that actually gather a lot of weight, I keep towards the back or in the engine compartment, around there. That way you kind of can kill it. Because the thing is, the heavier stuff you move to the front, the more you're going to affect your bow lift. The Skeeter FX, I don't get a ton of bow lift anyway, so it's kind of, I don't want to, take away from it any more than I have to. Hope that answers what you had in mind. Next question will be from Chris about the reels. Does one need to back off the drag when not in use? I don't. I don't back any of mine off. It hasn't bit me yet. I haven't had any issues with drag being, war spots in it that you hear the nightmares of. But and until I have an issue with it, I'm not going to. The best thing I can tell you is to maintain it. Keep them clean. Because even my reels that I use braid on, I have my drag locked down to as tight as I can get. Some of my reels I still have the factory braking, the bearings and drag washers in. The others, I even have some of the aftermarket. A lot of my frog reels, I have the Boca bearings in as well as the carbon drag washers. and still keep them locked down until, it's basically you have no drag. And I've not had any failure with drag. Daryl Freeman, if you had to store your boat outside, would you take all of your tackle out? A lot of that's going to do with how much humidity and moisture you get, or if your boat's in direct sun. If you have a cover on it, a lot of the hard baits, you probably won't be affected as bad, but a lot of soft plastic, it'd probably be a good idea to have something. And if I could recommend something is, even if you do the bags like I did, basically buy one of the dollar store totes that'll fit in one of your compartments. That way when you have to take them out, you just grab the one tote and, you carry them out. Or even, you can even do that. And one thing I've seen that, either the totes or the old milk cartons or the milk crates, the plastic ones, those work really well too, because a lot of those, the Plano boxes will fit right in. So you can keep, even your hard baits, if you want to take them out, put a couple of those up front on your boat, put them in that, and you just basically grab them and stack them up inside your house. But as far as rods and reels, especially like with me here in Texas, you get a lot of extreme heat, a lot of humidity. I definitely would take my rods and reels out, just because it would save your line tremendously if you can store that inside a climate controlled area, or something that's not going to get just blistering hot. Next question from Daryl Freeman, and it is, when you prepare the day before a tournament, do you have baits you need in a separate compartment? I would recommend Easy View Tackle. Allows you to organize. I agree, Daryl. The Easy View Tackle thing is a really neat thing. I don't throw a ton of soft plastics, so when I do, you saw those the Ziploc bags I keep in the back of my truck. If I know I'm going to be flipping a certain color beaver, or I'm going to be throwing a certain worm all day, I'll put those in one of those, sandwich bags, put it in that day box that I've got on the front deck of the boat, and it works pretty well. I've got guys and with me, I get a new boat every 9 to 10 months. So by me installing that, I lose them pretty quick. So using the Ziploc bag thing works really well for me. But I completely agree with you on the Easy View Tackle system. It really is a great product. Next one is from Ron Knight. What is the name of the spinnerbait pouch? Please spell. That is made by Live Soul Dream Designs, or LSD Designs. They're a Japanese company. And I may be wrong, but I think you can actually, if you go to biovexusa.com, I think you can actually get to the Live Soul Dream website there. If not, just Google the Live Soul Dream, and you'll be able to find that. And the next question would also be, all right, Chris, I answered your question there with the spinnerbait bag. Chris Robinson on how do you fizz fish? Me personally, I have the best look going through their mouth. That longer needle, which the needle I use is very long, the syringe is very long, you can actually look in the top of those fish's mouth, and you'll see like the two rock crushers that are in the top of it, or the little filters you see up there. On smaller fish, I'll push it up to where it's touching the top of the roof of their mouth between those, and then drop it down about a 1/4 inch and go in there. And I like to hold the fish by the stomach. The other, have its mouth, my hand on its mouth, holding the needle in, and ease it into the water. That way I know that it's air's coming out of them. If you have any other questions more in depth on that, feel free to email me, and we'll go over that. Next question is from Michael Moore. You said you like to go up in size on crankbait hooks. Will you switch both or just the front? Also, do you use the short shank to save on weight? Yes, I do change both of them. My 6XDs, I normally go to a 1/0 short shank KVD triple, and I do like that short shank because I can go with it. I feel like I can go with a one size longer or bigger hook by going with the short shank than I can with the longer. You can't really go as big because you start interfering with action. But if you stay with those shorter ones, I feel like you can go one size up and actually get away with it because you have such a shorter shank there. Does anyone else have any other questions? Or, like I said, any of y'all feel more than free to email me with questions. My email is cstanley@navionics.com. But you can also do the I think the little link that you get sent from being on the webinar. It has my email address in it as well. My next question is from Chris Robinson. Ziploc bags work well for jig storage as well. How do you store your jigs? With my jigs, I actually only throw a handful of color with jigs. In my jig storage, I use the Plano boxes for my football jigs as well as my flipping jigs. It actually works real well for me doing that. I keep a lot of jigs. If I'm flipping jigs, I basically only using 3 colors, and that's at least for the area I'm in. I use black and blue. I use black and blue, like a green pumpkin color, and I'll mix in like a camouflage or something. Those jigs work real good for what I do flipping grass. Or now if I go to a football jig, I'll mix in a peanut butter and jelly in that same lineup. But I normally will put 3/4 and 1 ounce jigs in my flipping, or even a half, maybe a 3/8, depending on what I'm flipping, and I'll put those in that one box. I'll put them in that box, and then I'm in and out because I keep one of the big, basically just like that same box I showed for the swim baits. I'll put one of those in my truck, and I'll have a whole array of jigs that are in their packages still in the truck. That way I can be in and out real quick and not lose a whole lot of time doing it. Let's see. Do you use rip baits? I do some. A lot of that's just depending on where we're fishing at. Texas, Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend, my home lakes, no, we don't use them a lot. We do use them some, but it's not just a real crazy on that bite here. Jig trailers, I store in the back with my soft plastics. I actually have a box because I keep my trailer simple as well. On a flipping jig, I use what's kind of a cross between a Zoom speed crawl and a super speed crawl. It's actually made by Bass Candy. They have a 3.75 speed crawl, or it's fatter than the normal speed crawl, but the pinchers aren't quite as big as the super speed crawl. So I use that for 90% of my jig trailers. Football jig and flipping, and every once in a while I'll go, if I want a slower fall, I might go up to maybe a beaver or a brush hog, or with the football jig same way. But 90% of the time I use that same Bass Candy, in either black and blue, or they make some colors that I kind of mix and match trailers. But I do the same thing. I keep those in the same 1 gallon storage bags in the bag. Any other question? What kind of? All right, let's see. Michael Moore, what kind of trailer on chatterbaits, if you use them, and what colors? I'll be honest with you, I've never thrown one. But I might be something wouldn't mind knowing some more about. Let's see. My next question is Chris Robinson. Will a lower motor give more bow lift? Well, it will to a point. It's all, learning more about how your boat performs the best. Go ahead and, like this boat here, I've got it on a hydraulic plate, but there's only a certain range that it works well in. If you get too low, no, you're not going to get, it's not going to get optimal performance. There's actually a small window. The best, like say this, any of the, high performance, this boat, my Champions, my Tritons, when I'm running the best, my motor's throwing a rooster tail just barely higher than my top of my cowling while I'm at wide open throttle. And the thing to watch is know what your maximum RPMs are. Like this show, I like to get it'll turn pretty consistently around 6,100. I think the rev limiter is like 6,150 or 6,250, somewhere in there. But you want to make sure that your motor is spinning the right perfect example is here in summertime. I actually go to a 25 pitch prop because when it gets hot, it doesn't spin as well. It doesn't bite as hard as when it does in the wintertime when the water's colder and and thicker. Whereas, so most of the time I run a 26, and summertime I run a 25. I keep as my spare prop on the floor is a 25. I run a Yamaha FXP prop on the boat, 25 or 26. Any tips for co-owners? Actually, yes, I do. I've had co-owners, from the BFLs, Weekend Series, Rayovacs Opens, and I've fished with a lot of great guys. I'm a little different than, a lot of the other pros that I've talked to that are a lot of co-owners experienced with pros, because I'm the guy, if I'm catching them, I normally share, tackle with whoever. If you're courteous to me, I'll definitely return it back. It's that morning at the ramp is kind of get a plan ahead of time. Let your pro know what you're comfortable doing as far as backing the truck down. That's one of the biggest holdups at a ramp is you get down there. If you're not comfortable backing the truck and boat down when it's dark, feel free to let him know. Because like me, I've run a bed cover, or the cap. It's all wrapped. You can't see out of it. You have to use your mirrors. So even me as the boater, I'll kind of ahead of time talk to my co-owner about that, see what what he's comfortable doing. And most of the time I back it to where the boat starts in the water, then we swap and go. It seems like it works pretty well. Kind of be open about that sort of thing. A lot of the tournaments now are starting to regulate how many rods you can bring. Kind of always has worked best, 5 to 7, 8 rods. They never get in my way. I run a single console boat, so you have plenty of room there. I would recommend you keeping your tackle in some kind of a nice organized bag. I have had a couple guys basically show up at Walmart sacks. They don't tend to work out that well. They end up ripping, you end up having issues. But the nice little Bass Pro Shop or whatever tackle bags, even like those small, the bags I showed you behind the boat, those Live Soul Dream bags, they've got compartments everywhere, so you can store a lot of baits. Me personally, the night before registration, I tell you what we're going to be doing. If we're going to be shallow, we're going to be deep. I try to help my co-owners, as far as narrowing down tackle, narrowing down rods. Hey, this is what we're going to be doing. Also, let your boater know what kind of seats you like in the back. I always carry both all events, just so to kind of accommodate whoever's going to be in the boat. But that's something you might want to bring up the night before the meeting. Let's see, next one from Mike Brindle. Any ideas on storing extra gallons of oil in the boat? When I ran my HPDI 2-stroke or even my Mercury, I always kept an extra gallon, always just an extra gallon in the engine compartment. There was always, room somewhere back there, even if I had to do the little pint size and carry 3 or 4 of them and just kind of stick them back there, or, put 2 of them in a gallon bag. And you can normally stash them, standing vertical next to your charger or something like that. It normally works out pretty well. Even with the 4-stroke, just in case something happened, I was developed a leak, I do carry 2 pints, but the back of my Skeeter, there's 2 trays back there when you open up, so I'll throw them in there. Normally, knock on wood, I don't need them, but I've got them just in case. Michael Moore, what do you think about the Hydrowave? I've run one on both of my boats. I think they're a tool, just like I feel about the Alabama rig. I don't feel like either one's a fix-all, cure-all to anything. I think certain times of year, certain types of fishing, they work better than other times. I, for a fact, have been fishing deep water where I'm looking at fish below suspended, and I have seen them come up towards the boat to see what the commotion is, or them get a little more active. I don't think it hurts to have it on by any means. Anything does a couple of things. Not only does it emit bait fish to try to make to kind of activate fish, but I also feel like that it also it'll help hide some of your noise of your trolling motor, or your power pole's going down, or someone walking around in your boat. I think it helps with some of that, kind of hide some noise. But yes, I do think the Hydrowave works. I really and truly feel like it helps on the shad spawn. I'll turn that thing on, shad spawn mode, and turn it up high. And if it gets 1 or 2 extra bites, during a shad spawn tournament, then hey, it's worth it to me, because if it one check and that thing's paid for itself. So I do think it they work. Chris Robinson, will you do one of these on how to find fish and read electronics? I'm actually doing one end of July. That is summertime fishing in Texas, how trusting your electronics. I did one about a month, maybe 2 months ago on Humminbird electronics. Any of y'all that want to view any of these old ones, go to Navionics.com. There actually is a tab that's called webinars, and every webinar that's been done, there's probably 60 of them on there that just from different specialists have done. You can actually go on there and find they're all recorded and stuck in there to where if someone missed it or wants to go back and review it, you can go there, see the full presentation. There's a guy, I know we've got a couple of Lowrance guys have come on there. Josh Douglas for one, Kurt Hayquist, both those guys have done some really good ones on Lowrance electronics. I'm not as familiar with them. I know them, but I know Humminbird's a lot better. I know I've done some on Humminbird, and Travis Huckabee's also done a few that are on there that are for Humminbird electronics you may want to check out. But yes, I will be doing another one of these over Humminbird electronics and finding fish in summer, kind of covering deep water fishing, grass fishing, and the way you can use. I'm hoping to maybe get to do something on the water interactive with it, but we'll kind of see how that goes. Does anyone else have any other questions? Or did I not cover anything that someone asked? All right, Chris Robinson asked, how do you eliminate flipping extensive grass? I treat grass no different than I do any other kind of piece of cover. I love, and you guys ask, when do you go to the grass? Being from Southeast Texas, I will go to the grass anytime it's present. I love flipping grass. I love fishing a frog in grass. I love fishing swim baits in grass. If there's good, healthy green grass, I feel like you can catch them in grass year-round. Just because I grew up on grass lakes. I mean, we have tons of hydrilla here. Wintertime, you're throwing traps in the hydrilla, or you're throwing a football jig or something on the edge of it. Summertime, if it's thick mats of grass, you always want to look for the irregularities in the grass. Points, ditches, little patches away from the main mat. Me personally, I love flipping mats. It's pretty, it's a lot easier to do though, so it's harder to defend if you're, getting ready for a tournament. Me, like this time of year, right now, Rayburn is 9 feet high. Toledo Bend is about 2 feet high. I know I keep using them, but hey, it's good examples. They're well-known lakes. The Rayburn, where it's 9 feet high, you have to use your electronics to find the grass, and you're basically, you're flipping on grass you're using electronics on. Not everybody can do that, so you want to kind of flip that. You want to keep your boat on the edges of it, flipping in front of your boat, and then you'll feel like you'll make one flip, you're in the grass. I'll flip a couple feet out to the, outside of where I just flipped towards the deeper water. Hey, if I don't get grass, I know where the edge is, and I keep on it. When you keep trying that every so often, you'll actually find little, points, or if you keep your boat to where your sonar's not really, once you find the edge, you're not really reading. Pull your boat out a little bit to where it's reading the bare bottom. That way if you come across points of grass, or you can kind of tell by, and then once you make a pass down it, you actually kind of get familiar where different points are. But 9 times out of 10, most of any fish are going to group up in grass. You're going to catch them on points or little drains, or hey, it may only be a foot or two difference in depth where it might drop off, but that's where you're going to catch your bigger fish. There's little subtleties that aren't like that. You've got a mile long grass line. You're going to want to try to find stuff that's different. Yes, you can catch fish just going down it, but you're not going to pattern them near as easy, and it's just kind of needle in a haystack type stuff. If you can narrow it down to depth, or type of vegetation, or what type of irregularities they're in the grass, that's what you're going to want fish. No different if you're dragging a Carolina rig. Say you're dragging a Carolina rig on deep grass, you still want to try to hit those points, or you don't want to just be up in the middle of the mat, for the most part. You want to be out. And granted, if you're not getting bit on the edges, flip 2 or 3 feet into the mat, or a foot, 10 feet into the mat. Basically, until you start getting bit, try everything in that mat. And then once you get bit, pay attention to every detail as far as where you got bit. Hit away, even flipping grass, hit a waypoint, kind of, look at it. Did you catch it on a point? Was it in a drain? What was the depth? Kind of pay attention to that. Then when you get your second bite is when you kind of start putting patterns together. All right, guys, if no one else has any other questions, I enjoy giving these presentations. And again, if there's anything anyone wants to hear, more in depth on that I either touch base on lightly, or, whether it's a topic you'd like to know more about, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to, to look at maybe doing one on, a certain topic. If it's not a topic that's big enough for me to do a presentation, I'll be more than happy to talk with you. Either, I'll give you my number. We can talk over the phone, or we can talk via email. Also, look me up on Facebook, and then I have a website, CoreyStanleyFishing.com, that I throw a few videos on. So contact me any way you like, and we'll talk about it from there. I enjoyed it, guys. Thank you.